Got a call from one of you with a question about what the situation could be walking into Red River for Texas. Go ahead and listen to this.
Hey, JD, this is Greg in Kingston, Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma Sooner fan, calling you in reference to, like your show where you said OU is going to be 5-0 going into the Red River. I'm going to ask you to put yourself out on a limb. I'd like to know what you think about Texas. They're going to be facing Ohio State, and then, in my opinion, the top quarterback and the top offensive line in the SEC, Florida. So going into the Red River Rivalry, what do you think Texas's record is going to be, just like you forecast OU? Enjoy your show. Have a good one. Later.
Appreciate you calling in. Again, 629-888-3931. I want to make sure we say this from the jump. Oklahoma's path to undefeated pre-Red River is easier than Texas's path to being undefeated ahead of that game. Oklahoma's got to play Auburn, got to play Michigan. Texas, they got to go to Ohio State to open, and you got to go to Florida the week before Oklahoma. So the reason why I stressed the week before Oklahoma, how many times we talked about a team with a big game on the horizon, and the week before they just trip up and don't take the game as seriously as they should, or they're not as locked in as they should be. The game against Florida, if I'm a Texas fan, I might highlight it even more emphatically than I do the Ohio State game. Because the Ohio State game, what makes me nervous about that spot that's so tricky, is the fact that it's Arch Manning's first start. It's on the, not first start as the guy in 2025, I should say. It's on the road. It'll be, you would hope, a pretty raucous environment in Columbus with them being their first game after the national championship win. Like, that spot in itself, from a magnitude point of view, is why it's intense. But the game at Florida is the one that I think is even more tricky. So, if they're going to be undefeated, and I'll give you my prediction here in a second, if they're going to be undefeated, what would determine that? I think there's two key factors I'm looking at. Factor number one, how much does Arch have to lean on around him? Because I've said many times, I love the way this Texas team is built, man. I love the defense. Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, Michael Taft is back there on the back end making plays. I love that defense so much to where I don't even need a lot from Arch Manning to see Texas be a team that could compete for an SEC championship here with his first year as starting quarterback. That's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it. Is that the reality? So I felt a lot of things during the preseason. My emotions are all over the place. My takes are all over the place during the preseason because we got some time now and we got some things to forecast and look at and break down and overanalyze. Like, we're all human here. We get stuff wrong. Am I right about Texas and their roster being tier one? Or is it a thing where, hey, Arch, man, turns out, man, that Julian Sand cat, he's pretty good. He's throwing to arguably the best cat in college football, that is Jeremiah Smith. Hate to break it to you, man. We need you to go throw the ball 30 times on the road. Can you do that? Caleb Downs back there playing safety. Can you do that for us? And if you can, then this is a different discussion. But, like, I don't want that necessarily to be my plan A if I'm Sark and the rest of this offense and the entire Texas unit. The other question I have, the other factor that will determine success, where's the Texas culture at in this spot? It's funny because Texas culture was always a discussion in a negative way before Steve Sarkisian got there. It was a thing where guys are just going to Texas for the blue check marks on Instagram, and the people would talk about the rumors of what you would get if you went to Texas and all those things. But, like, also you talk about guys that are being selfish at Texas. Like, there was a big discussion around Texas culture. It was kind of a buzz phrase. Well, right now, the Texas culture stressor and the variable that we're going to have to run it through is just what I said. How do they handle those situations? How do you handle pre-Red River Florida on the road? How do you handle the opener when it's going to be the coronation for Ohio State, their first game after a national championship? So the cop-out answer to your question here is 4-1. That's the cop-out answer. Oh, they'll split one of those. They'll, kind of figure themselves out in the month of October and go on a run, and, Texas will be a playoff team. But we're just going to go ahead and be safe and call it 4-1. Y'all, I'm not going to go ahead and say that. I'm going to go ahead and say they're 5-0 ahead of Red River. I think you have both teams undefeated ahead of Red River. And I think Texas, with what they've done very quietly with what I call the other stuff, I think that's what makes the difference in the games against Ohio State and the games against Florida. Like, we keep talking about how well Michigan majors in things that you can't totally quantify on the field. That used to be what Texas was deficient in. I think they're now one of those teams that majors in that. Because over the course of the last 2 years, we've seen Texas have massive wins. The win in Tuscaloosa over Alabama, program-defining win, era-defining win for Sark to this point. Old Texas would have won that game, turned around, fumbled it, lost the game, looked lackluster, and just kind of have all the narratives back around what Texas wasn't, right? Didn't happen. Texas also, last couple of seasons, has lost their starting quarterback. It's unfortunate, but it's college football. The beat must go on. No issues. Just continue to churn it along. They rallied around Malik Murphy a couple of years ago, rallied around Arch last year. And I'm not here saying it was the most formidable of opponents, but still, like, we've seen Old Texas fall apart when they have success or when they have adversity. Sark teams have not done that. They've majored in responding to moments. The other part of this, too, which maybe gets overlooked, I love the continuity at Texas. And I know I'm not talking about return of production. I'm talking about the way of doing things, both offensively and defensively at Texas, for the most part, at the highest level, has stayed the same over the course of the last few years. So whether you were a young buck didn't play last year, or whether you were a starter and you're coming back for another season, shout out Michael Taft, you are very familiar with the way of doing things at Texas. When you're familiar with your way of doing things, your routine, your approach, your process, all those things, internally, that creates stability, that creates confidence, and those are both things that I think Texas will have as an edge over Ohio State and over Florida. Because Florida now, as good as Florida's going to be, just as we sit here right now in the month of June, we'll reserve our right to change our pick here when it gets to that game, but in the month of June, like, Florida is going to be walking into that spot, if it means anything, with Texas coming to town. It's going to be one of those games that's new territory for DJ Lagway. It'll be new territory for Arch Manning too, but it won't be new territory for Steve Sarkisian. Won't be new territory for Michael Taft. Won't be new territory for Pete Kwiatkowski. Like, there's a lot of stability there, which I trust and I think will ultimately be a difference maker for Texas. So to give you a direct answer here, I think we get a Red River with 2 undefeated teams, which would be cinema. It'd be awesome. We think it'll already be cinema, but you're going to have Arch Manning, John Mateer playing each other, both with unblemished records and a spot to continue to have pole position in the SEC. That'd be electric. I think we get that as we sit here right now during the wonderful month that is June in the world of college football. But appreciate you calling in and leaving us a question or a take. Leave both. Again, 629-888-3931. Appreciate y'all giving us a call.